Hey guys, welcome back to the Curly Reader. My name's Amanda, and today I want to share with you all the books I read during the month of November. All right, so during the month of November, I was able to read 15 books, which is quite a lot more than I actually thought I had read that month, or in November, last month, whatever. So in November, I read 2 3-star books, 7 4-star books, and 6 5-star books. I think that all calculates out to the right number. I read 1, 2, 3, 4. I read 6 audiobooks, and then the rest were all physical books. And then I read 4 books that I owned, and everything else came from the library. So of the 15 books, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 were middle grade. So half were middle grade. I had 2 young adult, and then 5 adult. And 4 of the books were graphic novels. So that's kind of the way that all the chips fell throughout November. So yeah, I'm just going to share with you kind of what I read and my thoughts on it. So I'm going to go in order of how I read them, not ranking order or anything like that. So the first book that I finished was The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. So a lot of people have heard of this show. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original, I believe. And it is about a chess player in the 60s, a female chess player in the 60s. And I thought initially that maybe it was based off of a real person. And so when I went to go investigate a little bit, it is not based off a real person, but it was based off a book. And so I then went and checked the book out. I listened to the audiobook. The narrator was not good at all. Definitely do not recommend the audiobook. But the book itself was decent. I definitely like the show better, only because the show is a very literal, the first few episodes are a very literal interpretation pretty much of the book. I watched 2 episodes of the show, and then I went and I read the book, and I pretty much felt like I was reading the script for the show. But then in the later episodes, they take more creative license. So it was interesting. It's a lot about chess, and I know some about chess. Like, I know how to play chess. I know the way the pieces move, but I don't know like a lot of the lingo, and so it was a little bit confusing. I ended up giving it 3 stars, but overall it was enjoyable, and I enjoyed listening to the book and then watching the show. All right, the next book that I read, sorry, I have a huge pile of books sitting here in front of me, and they're not in order, so I'm going to be digging quite a bit. But the next book that I read is Macy, Macmillan, and the Rainbow Goddess by Sherry Green. This was just like a cover pickup for me from the library. I saw it at the library, and the cover seemed kind of fun, and I read, actually, there's nothing on the back, but I opened it and saw that it was written in verse, and that's all I really knew about it going into it. Well, come to find out, this is about a little girl who's deaf, and her family is getting ready to move. Her and her mom, it's just her and her mom. They're getting ready to move, and she's not thrilled about it. And then her next door neighbor, who is a very elderly woman, is also getting ready to move. And so her mom basically lends out her help, the girl's help, to the elderly neighbor, and she has to go over and help this neighbor pack up her books. And so she goes over and she starts talking, well, signing and communicating, writing with the neighbor, and they talk about books. There's a lot of talk of Anne of Green Gables in here, and Les Mis, and The Tale of Despereaux, and there's so many books referenced in this book that I loved. It's written in verse. It's about a deaf main character. It was just so good. It just hit me in the feels. It was the right book for the right time. I was kind of hitting a slump, like emotionally and mentally, and this was just like the breath of fresh air that I needed. It's so full of hope, and it's not the best book I've ever read, but it was perfect for what I needed when I read it. I want to buy this book because I want this on my shelf for me to be able to pull out when I need just that little oomph. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars, but it was just yeah, can't say enough good. All right, so the next book that I read after that, I listened to Transcendent Kingdom by Yagasi. This is one that I was not interested in initially. Like, I knew it was getting a lot of hype, but it didn't really appeal to me. I didn't really know what it was about. I didn't understand the concept. And then a friend of mine in real life, she said, I just read this book and you need to read it because I want to talk about it. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'll read it. Sorry, my hair is driving me crazy. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll read it. So I ended up listening to it, and this book, you guys, do not sleep on this book. It is such a smart book. I actually, when I got done reading it, I told my mom about it, and she just actually finished reading it, and she told me, she's like, I want to buy it because I want to underline the whole book. It's just so well done. It is about, I don't even remember what the main character's name is, but she is a neurologist. She studies the brain, and specifically she studies addiction and what the chemicals behind are, the way your brain works around addiction. And she does this because her brother he died from a drug overdose. And then her mom is also clinically depressed, and she grew up in a very religious Southern household. And so you kind of get this just kind of juxtaposition of religion and science and mental health all interwoven, and the exploration of the way that they're all related. And it's so well done. And I loved it so much. It's definitely one I want to reread because I think it has so much power, and Yagasi is just a genius. And like I said, when I was talking to my mom about it, we both just kind of came to the conclusion that it's just a smart book. It's not super like fast paced. It's not like super plot driven, but it's just the concept behind it and the way that it explains things. It's just so good. 5 stars. Go read it. Oh, loved it. All right. The next one that I read, sorry, you can hear my kids all screaming. The next one that I read, I actually read with my kids for school, and that is Love That Dog by Sharon Creech. This is another one that's written in verse. And I read this with my older 2 girls as like a poetry study. We read this and did some poetry kind of study and writing alongside of it, and it was really cute. It's really, really short, and it's written in verse, and it's just about a boy who's in a class, and the teacher is teaching poetry, and so he's having to write poetry, and it just kind of teaches the kids that poetry doesn't have to rhyme, and poetry doesn't have to follow a specific set of rules, and just kind of gets their brains going as far as what poetry is and how to write your own poetry. And it was cute. I liked it. All right, so that one got 4 stars. All right, the next few that I read were middle grade graphic novels. And so the first of which we talked about, my kids and I did a video where we talked about some of our favorite graphic novels. And this is one that my oldest daughter, my 10-year-old, said that she really enjoyed. And that is James Patterson's Jackie Haha. The graphic novel adaptation is done by Chris Grabenstein. I'm guessing is how you pronounce that. Or wait, no, I said that wrong. Okay, the authors of the book are James Patterson and Chris Grabenstein, and it's adapted by Adam Rao and Betty C. Tang. Anyway, but this is the graphic novel adaptation of his book, Jackie Haha. And so my oldest daughter picked this up at the library, and this is about our main character, Jackie, who is like the class clown. She's always been the class clown. She's always cutting up and getting attention by doing things that are funny, even when it's not really appropriate. And it's just kind of about channeling that energy into something productive and how to go about doing that, and when it's appropriate to be funny and when it's not. And it was really, really cute. I really, really liked it. 4 stars. All right, another one that I read, trying to find it, is the new Babysitter's Club adaptation, graphic novel adaptation. The new one that just came out is Logan Likes Mary Ann. This is number 8 in this series. These are adapted by Gail Galligan, and I really liked this one. I wasn't a huge fan of Boy Crazy Stacy, which I think was the previous one to this, but I really liked this one. I thought it was cute. This one follows Mary Ann, and she has a crush on this boy Logan, and kind of what, just middle school crushes and how to handle those. And yeah, 4 stars. All right. And then I listened to a YA contemporary book, which is not super common for me. But I listened to Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer. This is one that I listened to really because I just like Marissa Meyer's work. I've liked most of her work. I love the Lunar Chronicles. That's like my favorite book series. And I really, really liked her, the superhero series. I don't even remember what the name of it is now. I really like that. And then, you know, her other things here and there, it's kind of hit and miss. And so this was her first contemporary book that she had written. And so I wanted to give it a shot. It wasn't a huge success for me. I gave this one 3 stars. I just thought it was kind of hokey and a lot predictable and just wasn't my cup of tea. But it was decent, and it follows our main character who Penelope? No. I'm not going to be able to remember what her name is now. It starts with a P, I know that. It has to do with the Beatles. All of her and her siblings all have names that have to do with the Beatles. But it's basically a hate to love sort of contemporary romance. She kind of gets partnered up with this kid at school, and they don't work together well, and she has like grown to despise him. And then over the summer she's trying to get him to help her like get her grade up by doing this school assignment, and so they kind of have to work together, and then, you know, whatever. It was okay. 3 stars. All right, and then after that I read probably one of the most impactful middle grade books I have ever read, and that is Fighting Words by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. I'm getting really good at saying her name, by the way, just saying, because I say it so much now. But I finally read this. Buddy read this with Krista from Books and Jams and Katie at Life Between Words. We read this all together, and it was so good. You guys, this is a book that tackles the subject of sexual abuse, and it's written for 10-year-olds. It was so well done. I will say this with a caveat: do not just hand this to a kid and say, here, go read this, have fun. This is definitely a book that is meant to be read adults with kids, and to lead to more discussion. This is a book that deals with consent. It deals with child molestation. It deals with a lot of really, really heavy topics. It deals with attempted suicide. It's very heavy, but very important. I think, you know, as parents, read this and then read it with your children, and talk with them about these topics, because it is so important for them to know how to handle these situations, and how to handle these situations when their friends go through things like this. And so super, super well done. Just, I love this. 5 stars. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next, I read another middle grade, and that is Insignificant. Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling. This is another one that I picked up because I heard Arg Schooling, the channel, Emily, I believe is her first name. She had like hauled this and mentioned it, and I was like, oh, that sounds like it might be cute. I didn't really know what it was about. The only thing I knew was that it was about this girl who was born with no arms, and that's kind of all I knew. So this follows our main character, Avon, who is born with no arms. She has no arms, and she's kind of grown up in the same community her whole life. And then when she turns, is she 13? I think, yeah. When she turns 13, her parents move across the country, and she has to start a new middle school. And it's just hard because, I mean, starting middle school when you're the new kid is hard anyway, but then add in something like having no arms, and then you're really, you know, standing out. And so this just kind of follows her. She ends up befriending a kid with Tourette syndrome, and so there's a lot of conversation in here about Tourette syndrome and what it is, and just the stigma around it, and how to treat people who have Tourette syndrome. And there's conversation in here about Avon and how she is able to, you know, function like a full, you know, like a regular human being. And it was so well done. It was cute. It was fun. It's definitely something appropriate for kids, middle grade kids, and it just will spark their curiosity about these types of people who live with these, different bodies and different brain functions, and just how they function and how to treat them and how to respect them and behave around them. And it was super, super well done. There's a sequel, which I'm hoping to get and read as well. And this is definitely one that I will be handing to my kids to read. So, okay. After that, the next one that I read was, let's grab this one, Irina, book 1, Wartime Ghetto, and this is by 4 different authors. I need to look in here because they're not on the cover. Let's see. Okay, it is by Jean-David Morvan, Séverine Trefuel, David Everard, and Walter. It just says colored by Walter. And so this is a large graphic novel that follows the story of Irina Sendlerowa, who was a woman during World War II who basically helped thousands of children escape the Jewish ghettos. And yeah, this is graphic. It is, it's shelved in my library in the teen section. It is graphic. There is quite a bit of physical violence in here, and it was very moving at the same time. I mean, it looks very cartoonish, but it was very well done and very moving. I actually put the next 2 books on hold at my library because her story is just amazing, and I want to keep going with this. I also recently hauled, I have Irina's Children, the Young Readers Edition, which I think I might read with my 10-year-old here in the next few months. But this graphic novel adaptation was super, super good, and was just smart and so good. So all right, so I gave that 5 stars. All right, and then I listened to No Exit by Taylor Adams. This was a thriller. I was trying to fill in the Fall Into Reading challenge that was going around on Instagram, and I needed a thriller to fill in my thriller. I actually ended up never even posting my full board at the end, but whatever. So I wanted to read a thriller, and this was the one that I had picked out, and then this was also on my Gilmore-a-thon TBR. And so I listened to this, and it was so good, you guys. I don't read thrillers, and I read a couple last year, and I didn't like either one of them. I gave them both 2 stars. I just thought they were not good. They weren't thrilling at all. This was thrilling. This I loved. It had me on the edge of my seat. The twists and turns I didn't really see coming. Some of them I did. A lot of them I didn't. It wasn't super graphic, but it was just graphic enough to where you're like, bleh, And so, yeah, I ended up giving this one 5 stars, you guys. It was just good. It was entertaining. It did what I needed it to do. Hey guys, Editing Amanda here. I'm just realizing that I never told you what this book was about. So, No Exit is about a girl who is on a road trip in the middle of a blizzard and gets stranded at a truck stop, rest stop. There it is, rest stop. And she goes to get something out of her car. She's out in the parking lot, and she sees in the window of another vehicle a little girl's hand, and notices that this little girl is in a cage in the back of somebody's car. And so she's stuck at this rest stop with these people. She's trying to figure out who has this kid in the back of their van or in the back of their vehicle, and what's going on, and that's kind of the taking off point for it. So anyway, it was great. All right, and then I read Small Admissions. This was another one that was on my Gilmore-a-thon TBR, and this is one that has actually been on my TBR for a very, very, very long time. I thought this was about a daycare. It's not about a daycare. It's about a day school, which I guess is what they call private schools in New York City. I'm not from the city, can you tell? So I did not know that. For me, I'm thinking day school, daycare. That makes sense. No, this is more like high school, middle school, high school, that sort of thing. And so anyway, this follows our main character. I don't even remember. Kate. Yeah, Kate, And she recently went through a really nasty breakup and is just kind of hit this slump. She's super depressed and just like laying on the couch. And her sister ends up getting her an interview for a job at this day school. And she is going to be one of the admissions people, and or the mission director of admissions, something like that. Admissions department. Yeah. Leads to a position in the admissions department. And so she basically has to go through all of these kids' applications and, interview them, interview their parents, kind of put together a packet so that a team can decide if these kids are going to get into the school or not. And it's just about kind of what happened with her and her breakup, what's going on with her family. She comes from a very unique family. And what's going on with some of the kids at the school, some of the applicants, all of that. It's crazy. I will say there is quite a bit of language in this, which I did not know going into it, but it didn't bother me. Language doesn't typically bother me unless it's like in a YA book or something for younger kids, or if it's like just to the point of being crude. But this didn't bother me because I thought it was funny. But that's just how I am. But if language bothers you, don't read this because there is quite a bit of it in here. And yeah, but other than that, I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It made me laugh. I laughed out loud multiple times while reading this, and that's just what I needed. It just kind of hit the spot for me. So really enjoyed that one, 4 stars. All right. And then I read out loud, the read aloud that I read with my kids this month was Sweep, The Story of a Girl and Her Monster by Jonathan Auxier. This is one that I read last year and loved, and I read it with my kids, and I loved it so much. I love this book. This follows our main character, Nan. She's a little girl. She is a chimney sweep in Victorian London in like 1835 or something like that. And one day there's an accident and she finds that she is now in possession of a golem friend. And it is about her and her little golem friend and how they survive and thrive and kind of the chimney sweep community and what happens there. And yeah, it's super, super well done. The tagline or whatever in this is that you help others, or you save yourself by saving others. And I love it so much. So good. My kids really enjoyed it as well. There are a few kind of graphic scenes in it, which I had forgotten about, but my kids handled it well. All right, and then I listened to Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man by Emmanuel Acho. I ended up pre-ordering this and then listened to the audiobook because he narrates it. Emmanuel Acho started an Instagram, like IGTV series after all the riots in Minneapolis started and all of the race tension in the country kind of started. And the IGTV series is called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. And he basically just sits down with different white people and has conversations with them about different topics. So he'll talk about like interracial marriage or white parents adopting Black children. He talked with a pastor of a church about the role of the church. He talked with a police department about kind of relations and that sort of thing. And so in his book, he addresses multiple questions that he has been asked since he started the IGTV series. And so he just directly responds to those questions. And it was very, very well done. It is a great kind of stepping off point for learning how to listen. And the thing that I really like about his approach to this is that we're not going to change things by condemning other people's behavior. We're going to change things by having conversations with people and really trying to understand their side of things and where they're coming from. And that's his approach. And so I really, really like that and really appreciated what he said and highly recommend this. Gave that 5 stars. And then the last one that I read is another middle grade graphic novel, and that is Shirley and Jamila Save Their Summer. This is by Gillian Goers. And this is one that I heard about from Vanessa at Split Reads. She had hauled this in a library haul, and I was like, oh, that looks cute. And so I requested it from my library as well. And this follows these two little girls one summer. One of them wants to play basketball, the other one just doesn't want to be stuck at home, and so they kind of make this deal that they're with their parents that if they stay together they can go to the basketball court and into the neighborhood, and comes to find out that the one girl is like a detective, and so she has to solve these mysteries. Different kids come to her when they have a problem they need solved, and so they end up trying to solve this one mystery, and you kind of follow them around. It's really cute, it's really well done. It talks about just, I don't know how to explain it. It talks about the way that kids act out and trying to understand the reason they're acting out rather than just saying you're doing something wrong, even amongst other kids. So, for example, if I take something from you, instead of saying what you did was wrong, if I try to understand why you're doing it and have some empathy for you, then I'm better to understand the motive behind it, so that we can kind of come to more of a reconciliation. And I really enjoyed that. That was like a much more analytical approach. Like middle graders aren't going to think that much about it, but that's the message in here, is just kind of saying, okay, if we understand your motive instead of just saying you're wrong, kind of same thing as what I was just saying with Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man, then we're better able to kind of understand where the other person's coming from and build community. So really enjoyed this. 4 stars. That's it. Those were all of the books that I read during the month of November. So it was a good reading month. I did really well. So yeah, if you have anything to say about any of these books, I would love if you would leave those comments down below. I love chatting about books with you down there. And yeah, other than that, I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you stick around and subscribe. And until next time, see ya.